And that is 5 ways that people who are selling your music are disrespecting your band. All right, now, people ask me, or people may wonder why I have done this or still do this for so long. One of the overarching goals of Winter Solace Productions, besides having to recoup a specific amount of money that I took out of my 401k to keep the business afloat a few years ago, thanks to my old business partner in Brazil, is because I want to function as the antithesis of the music biz, or the underground music biz, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, industry or whatever. And one of the things I found is that black metal as a whole is very disrespectful to itself. And one of the things that drives me or continues to motivate me to expand is I want to be a whale and have enough influence and enough capital in whatever we do so that we can respond to this behavior where it shakes the earth. So just seeing people being treated respectfully is, my thing. And yes, did we mock people? Do I mock people online? Yeah. Did I just film a 20-minute segment throwing people under the bus for Christian black metal? Yes. I did not insult the quality of that music, and I'm not trying to demean or belittle the people who like that stuff. Okay? And I want that to be understood before I explain this, because this is very important to me. And this is going to be the hill that leaves me to leaving the Black Vault. Then it probably, which considering that promoting on web forums was an identity of mine, the label for like its entire 17, 18-year existence, might be worth giving this subject some discussion that merits that, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, it's 5 ways that people who are selling your stuff are disrespecting your music. The first one, and I have to do this one first to put in line all the others, and that is not honoring reasonable requests. Okay? Black metal is not the corporate mainstream music industry. The most you will make off of one of these releases as an artist, the most, is a couple hundred, couple thousand. You will not make enough to retire. One of the people that I know makes a lot of money from this has compared it to what he would get for one paycheck at his job. You will not retire from this. You will not be able to make a living off of this, especially if you live in the United States. And bands that are in black metal bands that do this either full time or for their existence become episodic. It's like Graveland. There's always going to be another one. That's all he does. So you imagine how much stuff and how much content you would have to make to perpetuate in, let's say, a livable existence. You further realize how small this is. And that's why it's perfectly reasonable to honor reasonable requests. Because we all know each other, everybody it's not like you can't get a hold of somebody that's out there doing stuff in a public space. Because there's people who came to me and said stuff, and yeah, I wasn't thrilled, but I did honor their requests. So that's the first way, and you have to do that one first, or I have to illustrate that one first to illustrate the rest of this. Okay, and I say reasonable requests because if you have something with some stupid drama or something, people are going to ignore that. Or for the most part, it's just going to kind of be moot. Okay, the first, and this is something that I've had a giant bug up my ass for about 18 years because one of the first trades I did, The label that I traded the stuff to did this to me twice and then told me never to come back. And I was just this 17, 18-year-old kid living in my mom's basement and was not mentally well adjusted. Okay? And that is insulting product descriptions. Now, anybody who's listening to this that is coherent, reasonable, or has any functioning brain cells would know that you don't do this. In one of our previous shop updates, I had bought old stock from somewhere. Musically, nothing is wrong with this, even though I'm not big on insult. You'll never catch me insulting something for being bad music, even if it's not my tastes. I try to avoid that. But I bought something. I imported it. Okay. And in my notes for the update, back when the promotional stuff was a little more extensive, what I would have to do to go and put it out there, I had written a blurb in one of my Word documents that was insulting to the individual and aired all the personal drama that I had with this person. And that made it into the shop update, product description, everything. Mistake. Well, nobody actually bought these until I went in and removed that and acknowledged that there was an error. Well, I didn't, make a big deal about it. That's how normal things work. But you get some people that get the stuff in trade and feel the need to insult it, call it boring music or whatever. And this is of an extremely low mental acumen. And I honestly wonder how these people get laid if they do that, because that just shows a lack of emotional connection. Because there's stuff, I will be honest, I don't listen to everything we're selling, what we bring in, some of what we release. I don't listen to it extensive amount of, like 20, 100 times before we go to press it. I mean, yeah, some labels will only press it if they would listen to it frequently. And one of the things that they usually have that go for them is they have a slower output rate and it's generally seen at a higher quality. So there's that, which is everyone's dream is to be able to get to that point. However, I learned a long time ago, and this is a euphemism about life. Just because you don't like something doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Okay? Case in point, I don't like the food hummus. It's mostly based out of bean, but that's the entire foundation of Middle Eastern cuisine. So there's that. That's why you don't do that. That's just complete disrespect. And then when somebody goes and requests that you take it down, you feel attacked by this person. You go, oh, well, this guy's autistic and he's just pissed off. It's like, no, this is a big deal to that person. And you just take it down. You compensate them for damages because you did damage them in some cases for years. But that's that. And everyone moves on. But, that's that. And if I find that there's a label that does that has our products, and then I'm going to go to them. And if we were doing deals with them, if I catch them doing this, we're going to go to them and say, hey, we're cutting you off. You're not destroying our stuff anymore. But that's that. And then the third thing that people are doing that would be disrespectful is obviously record flipping and pricing it too high. Do the values of some of these products naturally increase through the years? Yes. And if there is a perfectly reasonable price pressing out there, and somebody has to own a previous pressing that was not mastered just to say that they have every version, or something like that, or whatever, that is a compulsion. Okay, there's only one record that I have multiple pressings of, and that would be K-Bum Natur, because that was very significant. I still have a copy of the first press from that has the Sabbath Fire logo on there, and then I have one of the represses. And that's because eventually I'm going to have a house or something someday, and I'm going to probably take my first press and frame it. Okay, but now I wouldn't go pay an exorbitant amount of money to go and have that if something were to happen to that. But some people, that's what they need to do. And that's fine. But at some point, that's mental illness, and that's a compulsion. And you're starting to see this resurgence in CD sales because people are just fed up with paying really high prices for this stuff. You know, and a lot of that is, it's like, okay, you either have a bad product, they have bad price to manufacture, or just something about it's wrong. But, you know, in the day, you can only do so much about it. But pricing the stuff too high, well above cost, that's just disrespectful to the artist, because they wanted that much that to be sold, that they would have put it at that price and they would make all that money from that. Because I have heard of like other musicians in other genres self-releasing their stuff and then charging thousands of dollars for it. Okay, and if that's what they as the artist want to do, you know, that's that. The free market will obviously realign that with reality. I mean, I remember some of these Vothan listings. We caught one of these guys doing it. It's like, okay, that's a down payment for a house. You're just doing that so we would promote you. That's that. I've covered that extensively in other videos, so I don't need to go in depth with it. These last two, however, are an issue for some people, for some bands or for some labels, and some it's not a big deal, because at the end of the day it moves the material. But for me, they're a big deal because Winter Solace is a brand, it is a label, and it is my responsibility as the owner of that to make sure that the bands and everyone else who work with us don't impact negatively because of it and don't have their reputations decrease. So this is why I'm doing stuff about this. Now, point 4, it doesn't necessarily relate to the value of the product. If something is perpetually put on clearance or final closeout or on sale with no end date, so permanent price reduction, that's a problem. Now, if something is damaged or is not a genre of music that you typically deal in and don't have reach to, that's a little different. Like, I have electronic CDs that we got, you know, for that Japanese new wave stuff that I found at a thrift store. I didn't pay a lot to get those, and that's not price as extensive because we don't normally cater to that audience, and so somebody's not going to pay. None of the people who would pay full price for a black metal CD are going to pay full price for that's not in that genre that they're not attached to. But if something is either perpetually on sale or perpetually on closeout, what that says is, we don't want this, we don't have time to understand this, we do not acknowledge what's on it, we need to get rid of it, or too many copies were pressed. Because there's one black metal band that I identify with on an ideological basis to certain degrees, and I distro their stuff out of solidarity towards that. But it's not going to sell a lot, it's not going to be promoted, because they've pressed well above the amount that one would need to press for something like that. And that may work for them, but that doesn't work for us. But that's, if something is always on sale or permanently reduced, that just puts out the implication that it's a lower quality product. And that's why it's I mean, yeah, if you need to put stuff on sale for a date or something to get customers to come in and buy it, that's one thing. But just saying we're going to permanently reduce this perfectly good product, it's demeaning to the product. And while there is stuff that I have in all of our shops that's on closeout perpetually, that's not going to be restocked. But I don't want to put people in that position. And then the fifth thing, and this is what set me off originally, And what is the stuff being priced too low, i.e. below cost? Because the individual that I got into with online, and I was not attacking that person, by the way, I was trying to have a discussion with him in the same tone and cadence that I'm having now. The same non-threatening. You know, they just assume you're attacking them, though, because you're going against them. And it's all these people, and these are the same people behind number 2, the insulting product description thing. They're a group of people. They're mostly from the United States. They either come from indie music or hardcore music, and they have that background in addition to all of this. They usually live in some coastal area or leftist-controlled area, and they, again, lack the same mental depth and acumen to go and connect with people. And then when somebody comes and says, hey, you're disrespectful, set boundaries with them, they feel attacked. Rather than just go, okay, this person is criticizing us, we need to just apologize, we need to go and then have a dialogue with this person and just change our behavior. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're somewhere being a disturbance, the person saying, hey, you being a disturbance is not attacking you. They're just saying you need to not be a disturbance. There's a big difference. So with that out of the way, stuff priced too low. We had one of these, I caught a vendor online pricing stuff I played on too low or for free, giving away at requests of people where they would just pay the postage. Copies of some of our older South American bands and Gateway of the Sun, specifically, who died in Peru, which is just disgustingly disrespectful to that. As well, that may not be musically everyone's cup of tea. That guy, that was his only contribution to humankind. And there are people in other countries that, even if it were free, wouldn't be able to afford the postage and the customs nonsense to import the stuff, and they would love to own those products. So that's part of it, but if you price something below cost, what it does is, yes, somebody out there is getting a great deal, but that's taking my money. And when I brought up this point, one of the people who consistently used to troll me brought up this point and actually agreed with him, and then he went and edited his posts, but I'm the one who was causing all the online drama. But, you know, that's that. There was never a conspiracy of a group of people to get me to leave the internet. That never happened, just because they didn't like me. And that was, he brought up Garth Brooks. All right, now I got Garth Brooks here. I got the hits. Okay, this is a compilation. It's pro-America. You know, it's got all the hits on there. All right, it's a compilation he did. I mean, it's got Rodeo on there. I mean, that's deep. Like, if you want to understand masculinity, that's the song that you need to listen to. Like, women need, like, all those women that hate men and can't get or understand masculinity, like, they need to go listen to that song. That one song, it explains. It's deep. It's very, very moving. But so you got Garth Brooks here. You got all the hits. And I didn't follow his request, as I bought this for like $2 at a thrift store that I could walk to from my house well before all this happened, because I actually do listen to this. When I went to Orlando, this was the only thing I brought driving to the airport, just because I wanted to just completely shut off my phone and have a break from metal and music. And this is something that's completely different. But you got, okay, and in this, okay, it's hard to see here. I'm just going to read this to you. This compact disc is cut or drilled or marked for promotional use only. 1, it is not intended for sale, and 2, neither the artist nor songwriters nor publishers receive any compensation. Now, Garth Brooks is notorious for never authorizing any official streaming, digital publication of his music or anything else, because he receives no royalties from this. Okay, like, this is a mainstream musician that says, I don't get any compensation from this, because what you make off the digital downloads and the digital rights to all of this is like nothing. Like RC, like all the major corporate labels that have all their digital stuff online, they're making like 1 cent or something off of the streaming. And so the artists receive absolutely no compensation by it. And he just goes, I'm the artist, this is my work, I'm going to do something about it. And he did. And he was notorious for doing that. And the same premise kind of applies to the argument that I'm making. If, let's say, I have a CD, okay, that we release in our shop, that I have in our web shop. Price it, we're just going to say anywhere between $8 to $15 or something. You know, that's about what somebody would have to pay for that, either through myself or for one of our distributors. Okay, to make a CD, depending on what you do, the cost is a little lower than that. And obviously, we have to mark the stuff up to make a profit and offset other expenses, you know, artwork, layouts. And I will state, there are a couple of our releases that I'll tell the stories of behind on some of these videos someday, that if we were to put a dollar value on that and apply it to the product itself, it would be priced at something that no one would pay. Okay. Generally speaking, to make a pro CD, your cost is like $4 per unit. Usually. And that's a ballpark figure, you know, just to actually manufacture it. That doesn't include any other paid production or anything. Or operating expenses, because I have to be able to afford to buy mailing supplies and stuff like that. Somebody goes and let's say they charge $1 for that CD. Yes, a customer is going to get a great deal off of that, and they will probably take that deal, and I would wholeheartedly encourage them to do that. But I don't see any... nothing comes back to me for that, or thus the bands. And that's the crux of my argument. And in my opinion, if something is being sold or given away at that price, that indicates also that there's no demand for it, and thus it is a waste of storage and resources. And at that point, it needs to be recycled or discarded. Like once or twice a year, I go through all of our shops, and anything that's damaged that nobody's going to buy or something like that, all of that gets boxed up and auctioned off well below cost for resellers, mostly in other countries, to try to do something. But these are all things where there's no promotion or there's no way that anybody's going to buy that. And so I get that point of the argument too. But at some point, the upkeep of that, it becomes easier to just get rid of it. And that's what I personally request for these people that get stuck with these things that they cannot move or that they don't want to move. And that's where the crux of my argument is. But if I go do a deal with somebody, either a trade or somebody buys the stuff from me wholesale or something, I get something back from that. For these resellers selling these things well below cost, I don't get anything back from that. Which is where I feel insulted and where it is demeaning to what we're doing. And that was the point of this tutorial video. Now, I want to thank everybody for sitting through this rather lengthy podcast, because I filmed a bunch of stuff, and then I kept all that stuff, and then other stuff came up that I felt would be important to do videos on. And so I want to thank everybody for either sitting through the long run or just watching the various videos online. I am Winter Solace Productions, www.wintersolaceproductions.com, and that's going to get fixed. And Cosmic Weapon of Thule, and you can follow me on Instagram and Cosmic Weapon of Thule, or join our Telegram group, the 88th Chamber of Shaolin. And I hope to hear back from you and all of that. Have a nice day.